I'm Jim Darich, and I am with the Homestead Valley Community Association, and we are sponsoring the evening. We're hosting the evening that is being, and the forum is actually being conducted by the League of Women Voters for Marin County. This year, the League celebrates 100 years of following a mission to empower voters and defend democracy. Yes, big hand. Hosting and moderating candidate forums is an important part of their vision of a democracy where every citizen has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. The League is strictly nonpartisan organization and never supports or opposes individual candidates or political parties. Before we get started, ask you to turn off any devices that might make some noise during the evening. And to let you know that unauthorized videos are not allowed because the FCC requires that a forum must not be edited and must be broadcast in its entirety, either live or reasonably soon after it takes place. So to that end, we have a videographer at the back of the room, and who will be editing and putting this all together, and it will become available online through the League of Women Voters website. The League wants to ensure you that information is not manipulated to create false or misleading impressions. No candidate should be allowed to use or edit the footage for campaign purposes. So, I mentioned a bit earlier, but just again for your information, the restrooms down the stairs over there and the end of the hall. And, questions. On your seat before you sat down, or you may be sitting on them, is a 3x5 card. If you have questions, you can write them and pass them to this end of the room. I will pick them up and get them to our questioner or moderator up here at the front table. And now I'll hand it over to the moderator to introduce herself, Nancy Bell.
Thank you. Hello, and welcome to this candidate forum moderated by the League of Women Voters of Marin County. I'm Nancy Bell, and of the League of Women Voters, and I will be your moderator tonight. With me are League members Elaine Biagini, over there, she is our timekeeper, and Annie Laser and Lisa Bennett are our question sorters. The League of Women Voters is a trusted membership organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We do not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. In addition to promoting voter education, the League participates in advocacy for issues and may take positions on issues that arise in ballot measures. In order to ensure impartiality, it is the League's policy that candidate forum team members not live in the voting jurisdiction the candidates represent, nor can they be actively involved in a candidate's campaign. So none of us live in District 4. I would like to briefly explain the roles of the timekeeper and the question sorters. To ensure everyone stays within the allotted time, our timekeeper will hold up easy-to-read cards fully in the candidate's view, signaling their remaining time, such as 30 seconds. When time is up, she will hold up a stop sign, at which point the candidate should complete the sentence that they're on. I want to assure you that the question sorters do not censor the questions, but rather they screen the questions to avoid duplication and anything inappropriate. If you do not recognize your question, it might have been combined with other questions on the same topic. Please note that Community Media Center of Marin is recording this evening's forum, as Jim mentioned. A gavel-to-gavel production will be rebroadcast on CMCM's Channel 30, as well as on the League's website. Audience release notices are posted around the room advising that your presence as a member of the audience during the filming constitutes your permission for the League of Women Voters of Marin County to use your likeness on the air in any form and as often as they deem appropriate and desirable for promotional or broadcast purposes. There are 2 candidates running for 1 seat on the Marin County Board of Supervisors, District 4. The candidates with us tonight are Alex Easton Brown and Dennis Rodoni. Before we get started, a quick review of some ground rules. If you haven't done so already, please take a minute to silence your cell phones or any other noise-making devices. Because we are a strictly nonpartisan organization and following FEC Federal Election Commission rules for candidate forums, no campaign material, including buttons, signs, brochures, t-shirts, are permitted in the auditorium. Each candidate has been invited to make a 2-minute opening statement. After that, the candidates will each have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. To be fair, I will rotate the order in which they respond to the questions. So for opening statements, we will begin with Alex.
Hi, my name is Alex Easton Brown. I'm running for supervisor. Do we have feedback? Is that feedback?
You're getting feedback there?
Yeah. I'm running for supervisor because I think that our county government is out of touch and out of control. Marin is the richest county in California. Civic Center is swimming in money because Marin is tax rich. County government is so bloated it is paralyzed. Look at the terrible shape of our roads. Now, road repair is a basic function of government. Yet the first thing Supervisor Rodoni does after getting elected is to try to raid the Treasury to benefit his friends at Spawn. At least we got the court to interrupt the scheme before our money was lost. Now we got to make sure that our supervisor doesn't try to bail out his buddies by overpaying them for a site to build a fire station or some other shady deal to benefit Spawn. The easiest way to clean up this mess, and Civic Center in general, would be to elect me supervisor of District 4. Elected or not, I think that the FBI should be asked to investigate Super Rodoni's backroom deal. I will discuss this further in my closing statement.
Good evening. Thanks to the League and thanks to the Homestead Valley Association for holding this campaign event tonight. My name is Dennis Rodoni. I'm 4th District Supervisor in Marin. My wife and I live in Olema. My wife Judy and I live in Olema. I have 2 adult daughters and 2 lovely grandchildren. I have a long family history in Marin and West Marin, where my great-grandfather came to Olema, the dairy farm, 150 years ago. I went to West Marin schools, Tamales High School, and then Chico State, where I got a degree in economics and a teaching credential. My work history started as an IJ delivery boy. Then I pumped gas at the local gas station and worked as an apprentice carpenter, working my way through college. I taught for 3.5 years, and I still have my teaching credential, taught high school, and for 37 years I was a general contractor. In 2016, I was very, very fortunate to be elected supervisor representing District 4 after spending 21 years on the North Marin Water Board. The challenges of District 4 are many. You may know there's 15 villages and towns in very diverse districts and areas of the county that I represent, including the San Rafael Canal District and farm workers in West Marin. My goals for 2020 are to get the census count done correctly where everyone gets counted, to bring a plastic ordinance to the county unincorporated area banning single-use plastic, continuing to build accessory dwelling units, passing Measure C, the fire tax, and defeating Measure D, the San Geronimo initiative. I also want to work on the GMP and completing that and getting long leases for our ranchers in the park. I'm proud of my record, and I'll speak more to that later on.
Thank you. And now for the questions. So our first question is going to be fairly general. Homestead Valley is a small hamlet and geographic outlier in District 4 and not where either of you are from. What will you do to ensure we do not become a forgotten stepchild during your term in office? And we'll start with Dennis.
Thank you. So District 4 geographically is huge. It's spread from Muir Beach to Dillon's Beach to the San Geronimo Valley, includes East San Rafael, San Quentin Village, San Quentin Prison, western Novato and Corte Madera, and parts of Larkspur. So it's a vast, huge geographical district with many diverse people. I've worked on having office hours twice a year in all my communities. That's been very successful. I've been here many times and are always available to come and meet again, as I did today. I had 2 meetings with the community before this campaign event. I'm always happy to do that, and I think that's the best way to govern, is to reach out to the people and hear what their concerns are. Thank you.
As a county island surrounded by Mill Valley, you're sort of slaves to the city council of Mill Valley, and it's easy to be ignored because you don't have representation. Traffic is a big problem, not just for you, but for us out in San Geronimo Valley, because as more people move into the communities, our traffic problems grow worse. And as our civil engineers keep tearing up our roads, our traffic problems grow worse. As they make the roads more narrow and more bike and pedestrian friendly, our traffic problems grow worse. As our county spends $50,000 a year to encourage visitors to come to Marin, our traffic problems grow worse. But again, you're living in a county island surrounded by Mill Valley. As supervisor, I would endeavor to throw you a lifeline to make these traffic problems better, and also to make communication better between you and Civic Center.
Thank you. And as long as we're on traffic, let's dig it a little deeper. Traffic in the greater Mill Valley area has become unbearable, partly as a result of Caltrans installing a new traffic light. The City Council seems only to be able to admire the, installing a new traffic light. The City Council seems only to be able to admire the problem from afar. What can you do to help ease the situation? Go with Alex.
Yeah. Our county engineers should be able to override a problem if it's caused by a city and the city does not attend to it quickly. Same with Caltrans. I've often thought that the Richmond Bridge should be more or less seized by the county of Marin, at least our end of it, and force that third lane open because of the necessity. And I see my wife sitting in traffic. She's a teacher in Richmond, and she's subject to the delays. Also, the view place on the Golden Gate Bridge at the north end, where traffic backs up sometimes onto the bridge. That should be under our control, not Caltrans.
Thank you. I believe the traffic signal issues are around Manzanita, Tennessee Valley, and Tam Junction, and I think the Manzanita and Tennessee Valley ones we believe they've been fixed. The issues related to why we're having problems, we believe they've been fixed, and we'll soon find out this winter we get more rain and flooding happens again. Tam Junction has been a challenge working with Caltrans, and in most cases that's true. Supervisor Cedars' office has been working with Caltrans. We're developing a protocol for noticing when there's an issue at that light so that people can get early notice. All the officials could be noticed, the residents could be noticed, so that in the case it's out, you have a chance to pick a different route. And I think that's important. It doesn't fix it. We still need to work with Caltrans to figure out how to fix it. But Tam Junction has a lot of issues, including the flooding issues with sea level rise that need to be addressed. But the bottom line is we need to have a better and a collaborative working relationship with Caltrans. That's the only way we're going to get anything done. They're a big bureaucratic system. And from my perspective, bringing them to the table at every case that you have a problem has been very beneficial in other areas. I don't work on Tam Junction because that's Supervisor Sears' jurisdiction, but I do collaborate with her on it and get updates on it all the time, and I'm willing to help her with it. So thank you.
Okay, while we're on traffic, can you please speak to the issue of how to better control vehicles speeding in our neighborhoods? Pros and cons of speed bumps and other orb methods.
Sure. Thank you. This is a common concern in all our residential neighborhoods. And unfortunately, State law prohibits speed limits less than 25 miles an hour. So we don't have a tool in our toolbox to actually reduce speed any more than that. And I know that many communities wish to have speed bumps, but from the perspective of our engineering department and DPW and our first responders, they don't believe that that's the best solution for them because it's way too hard on their vehicles, way too delays their response time too much for an emergency. And so what we do is try and work with the communities to develop other mechanisms, including sometimes just outreach and education. Almost always, though, we've discovered through the data testing that we've collected in terms of speeding, it's almost always people are not going as fast as you think they are. They just appear to be going fast. So when we look at enforcing the 25 mile an hour, we have to do a speed test and find out what the average speed is in that community or that neighborhood. And almost always it never exceeds that 25 much. It just appears that they're going faster. But I do believe that there's a place in this for a community discussion to make sure all the neighbors also pay attention to the speed zones, because a lot of time it's local traffic that's creating that problem, and certainly coming to the schools and things also create that problem. But I think we're aware of it. It's not easy to solve. The sheriff has limited resources, but we have been successful in bringing enforcement into communities throughout West Marin and District 4.
And Dennis has pretty much covered the complexity of speeding on the residential streets. So I'm just going to leave it at that. There's nothing I could add to that.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to emergency preparedness. In light of the county recognizing the need to allocate funding to bolster the county's emergency backup power supply, what would you do to help vulnerable residents in your district with capital projects to ensure that safety and communication needs are met in possible future power shutdowns? Alex.
Other than providing funds for emergency generators and such as that, I recently, during the last blackout, we're out of power for 4 days. So I ordered one from Amazon. Of course, it got there after the thing was over. But knowing the generators there would be comforting for me in the future, because it was really a hardship those 4 days. I would make funds, I guess loans available to citizens to purchase generators. I don't think the technology is quite right for creating mini distribution networks of power. I just don't see that happening.
Thank you. If you followed my campaign in 2016, I was the only candidate to talk about alertmarin.org as an issue, because getting people signed up for that is so very important to get messaging in an emergency. We've continued to prioritize emergency preparedness, and in part we've supported Measure C so strongly is because that brings the necessary dollars to the table for all of Marin County to do better vegetation management, better egress and evacuation route works, making our roads wider and safer, and more importantly, home hardening. The county currently is working on retrofitting all our buildings right now so that they're capable of being plugged into generators. We don't know what those generators are going to be yet or will look like, because we're concerned currently about buying diesel generators or other natural gas generators that maybe not very friendly to the environment. We haven't figured out the generator part, but we're going to make sure every building is retrofitted to take a generator hookup. Requiring backup cell sites power is really important. Marin lost 60% of its cell sites power service actually in the PSPS, the most recent one. And we're working with McGuire and supporting McGuire's bill to require 3 days of emergency backup at all cell towers. We think that'll help because people are so dependent on their cell phone for information.
Thank you. Just to remind everybody, if you have any questions, just fill out your index cards and pass them down this end so we can ask the candidates. So I have another question here. Why has the county not done anything about flooding in the Manzanita area? And starting with Alex. start with Dennis.
Okay, thanks. So I mentioned that about the Tam Junction and the flooding issues there. It's not just a flooding issue, it's a high tide issue. It's related to sea level rise issue. And because the county had embarked on the Bayway study, it's one of the projects that we've identified, one of the infrastructure projects we've identified that needs our attention. And so the next phase of what we're working on is to actually figure out how to find funding that will start doing improvements that will reduce the impacts. Quite honestly, long term, it may be something about retreat we have to look at. Short term, we're looking at how do we mitigate the flooding and the high tides to benefit us for now. But realistically, there may be a point in time that adaptation is that we have to abandon something, and that may come up in the next 50 years, it looks like. So.
Oh, as I stated, I don't know about the flooding.
Okay, thank you. So now our next question, different subject. And this will start with Alex. What are your views on the SMART train?
Well, the SMART train has not gotten any traffic off of Highway 101, and it's never likely to, no matter how many passengers. It's just ill-conceived. You know, this county was built on rail traffic. Our whole valley, where I live, those towns were all created after the railroad came through, and people actually took that railroad all the way to San Francisco to work or to go to school. It was convenient, it was inexpensive, it was part of our life at that time. You know, but we're talking 100 years ago, and SMART right now just keeps devouring dollars, and besides making traffic worse in San Rafael, and using these diesel engines that make the environment worse because air pollution. I see no end in it, so I'm against Measure I.
Thank you for the question. I've been very supportive of the SMART train in making sure that we have first and last mile connections for my work on Marin Transit and the TAM, the Transportation Authority of Marin. I, however, am neutral on this initiative, and the reason I'm neutral is me personally in my location here in District 4. I think we have priorities that we need to deal with, namely Measure C and Measure D, and personally my reelection, that are far more important than SMART, which has 9 years left on its current proposal, sales tax measure. So but I am officially neutral. I have voted, but I won't tell you even how I voted.
I got a little bit of background on this question. Last week, there was an article in the IJ about a proposed pot shop on Evergreen, a site that is along a safe routes to school route for MHS K through 8, 2 blocks from an elementary school bus drop and pickup, next door or behind around popular high school lunch spots, within a mile of Tam High, at the end of a family community and an already congested area. What are the rules the county will be using to decide the appropriate location for this type of business? Dennis.
Thank you for the question. That was one of the meetings that I sat in today earlier. Medical marijuana was approved over 20 years ago by 73% of Marin. Ever since then, the county has struggled how to figure out how to deliver medical marijuana to its residents. In the last 3 or 4 years, we've tried a couple times to come up with a way to do this, to provide safe medical marijuana. At the end of the day, those failed, and we decided the only way we could safely do it for our communities and safely do it for our county was to do it through a delivery-only process. So what's happening at Evergreen is a delivery-only product, and there will be no public or retail establishment there. Shouldn't be any additional traffic related to it. I believe I heard the number today, there'll be 4 to 7 times a day that a vehicle will leave there to make a delivery throughout Marin, and about 5 employees that will be employed there. It's a very safe process. We spent a lot of time making sure this process was safe and thorough. We only approved 4 of them. This is only the second one that's being approved in all of unincorporated Marin. We do know from experience that these types of operations in San Rafael have been very successful without many complaints and without many problems. We're very hopeful that we've done enough work to make sure that the one on Evergreen meets those requirements and meets our requirements, and it is reviewable after a year's time of operating. And any changes they make, they would have to come back to the county. So.
The state messed up entirely in trying to govern the marijuana market. As we see, half of it's gone now to the black market. It's going to get worse and worse. However, local communities are freaked out about pot shops, and delivery seems to be the best solution. But the more we talk about delivery, the more we get frighten people about the loss of retail. But I see another solution, and perhaps it should be centered in one central location. Let's say 1,000 miles from us, somewhere where they can just mail it to us.
Okay, thank you. So this next question is going to be around housing for minority population in Marin City. And while Marin City isn't in District 4, certainly as a collective, the supervisors address these issues together. What can you do to help the residents in Marin City develop a community land trust to enable them to get ownership of their housing?
I'm going to start. Alex.
I don't really have anything to add or to that concept of the land trust. It seems overly complicated for a basic solution of just providing housing. The state instructed cities and counties to make housing more affordable, but our supervisors doubled the building fees, which are now 3 times higher than San Mateo County, which is the closest comparable county. Now, I'm all for infill and Habitat for Humanity and other similar programs, but we got to acknowledge that it's market forces that control our housing stock. Not everyone who wants to live in Marin can afford to live in Marin. Same goes for New York City or Waikiki. Instead of hiring people from out of the county, we need to hire people that already have housing. Again, there's no way we can control market forces. It's just ridiculous to think we can.
So the Housing Authority and Marin City have been planning to try and upgrade, renovate the current buildings there and apartments there. Some basic concepts have been accepted by the Board of Supervisors, that there would be no displacement. In other words, all 300 plus residents who live there would be allowed to remain there and not be displaced even during construction, and I think those are important principles. We have entertained the idea of home ownership within this redevelopment, and we think that's still a possibility. We've been told by HUD, the federal people in this game, that this couldn't ever be a land trust. But we haven't lost that vision or idea. We think there are other opportunities within Marin City to develop land trusts where the community can continually own the ground under any affordable housing. And there are other opportunities in Marin City for land trusts. It just doesn't work with this federal project the way it's currently proposed, and we're hearing that it may not be feasible. And that's, I'm very familiar with land trusts because Point Reyes, West Marin has a very good one, CLAM, and I know experts who advise CLAM, and they've informed me of the same thing, that they didn't think it was possible on this federally owned land, that they weren't going to give up the ownership of this land to a land trust. And, that's what we know. And so, but we haven't lost the vision of a land trust being possible, because we think home ownership is important and in many forms for the people of Marin City who have been denied that.
And Dennis, you're going to start this next one. Measure J would provide funding for a permanent road division on Ridgewood Avenue with an immediate special tax on parcels within the division. What is your position on Measure J?
So I'm very favorable of Measure J. Many of you know you live on roads that are owned by the residents of that roadway. And so the only chance to get renovation or replacement of paving on those roads is to put together, it's a very expensive package. And fortunately, since I've been on the county board, I was able to actually get a new policy in place for funding these types of road divisions, and also encourage the Department of Finance to extend the number of years they will loan on a project so that communities can afford to spread the cost now over 10 years rather than 5 years. So we've been working with the Ridgewood group, and we're very happy to see this coming to the ballot next Tuesday for them. They're going to get a new paved road. I'm pretty convinced of that. I think the citizens there are supporting, residents are supporting their proposal, and I'd be very surprised if it didn't pass.
Yeah, I support Measure J.
Okay, Alex, we'll start with you on this one. According to the Race Count study, Marin County has the unique distinction as being the most racially disparate county in the state, where outcomes for people of color are far worse than for white residents of Marin. What are the opportunities for you as supervisor to move the needle on these disparate outcomes here?
Again, the people that live here as a result of market forces. I know I came here 50 years ago because it was affordable to live in West Marin. Regardless of your race or background, that's the way it works here. And don't foolishly think we're going to be able to change that. So I have no comment to make on that question.
Thank you for the question. One of the practices of my office, and me in particular, whenever I'm reviewing someone for appointment to a commission, is I try and always represent the community as I see it, which means people of color, women, are appointed to those commissions. I'm proud that 65% of my appointments to commissions in Marin County have been women or minorities. And I think that we're making a difference by doing that, because we're placing people on commissions that advise the Board of Supervisors that represent our communities. And I think that's really important. On top of that, we have to figure out ways to give everyone opportunities to buy a home, to live in our community, to have a good job. And that just starts as a priority for my office. And when we look at Marin City, one of the things we're working on down there is, as part of this redevelopment, is a healing process, but also a training process to give them better jobs that last long times, that are well-paying, that develop a middle class again. And I think that's a priority for everyone, or should be.
Thank you. And Dennis, we'll start with you on this one. What kind of immigration issues reach the Board of Supervisors?
I'm sorry.
What kind of immigration issues reach the Board of Supervisors?
So, obviously, immigration is a federal issue, although the state does dip into that a little bit. And the County of Marin, by resolution, has been very supportive of our immigrant community, because we see the fear that's in our community by many of our immigrants. Fear of taking their kids to school, fear of going to the clinic, fear of coming to the county, fear of using county services. So we've tried very hard to give the message that all immigrants are welcome in Marin County, welcome to use the services, and we continue to give that message. On other issues, we've supported Congressman Huffman on things that he's done to protect our immigrants. We protected individuals who have been, we tried to protect individuals and added our voice to individuals who have been picked up by ICE and held, who have families in Marin with kids in school that have good paying jobs, and now they're being held in a prison somewhere while they're waiting a decision. This seems all really fair and unfair, and it really relates back to our federal government finally dealing with immigration reform, and that's where it really needs to happen.
Again, I have nothing to add.
Okay, here we go. and we're going to start with Alex on this one. Post-retirement costs for public sector employees are growing and crowding out spending priorities for the county's limited resources. Acknowledging Governor Brown's prior reform effort resulted in minimal benefits. What are your plans for reforming these expenses?
I would overturn the California rule and stop the county from paying those 3.5% cost of living increases every year. I know I don't get one of those. This whole pension thing is out of control, and the public employee union seems to run the county rather than the supervisors. So, other than overturning the California rule and perhaps reworking some of these pensions, like Mansurian's $500,000 a year, Reisenfeld's $500,000 a year. I mean, how did that happen? Really?
As you may know, Marin's retirement system is in MSERA, which is not a state retirement system. And Marin's portion of MSERA, there's cities that are involved in that pension too. Marin's portion of MSERA is 88% funded. And in the last 2 years, we've averaged 9% return, which means that it's in relatively good shape. And we, at 88%, are one of the highest counties in the state in terms of being funded. It doesn't mean we have challenges, though. We've set aside $10 million pension stability fund so that when we have hits on the pension fund because of the stock market drop or something else, we have funds set aside that would cover that cost so that the budget doesn't get hit. And I think that's important to have those kind of safety nets. I also think we need to lower our expected return another quarter cent. We went from 7.25 to 7 recently. I think we need to drop it down to 6.75 to be more realistic. A quarter cent drop, though, means $2 million hit to our budget. But we do have a $600 million budget, too. So it's not a substantial hit, and it may be more responsible to be more accurate with the return. PEPRA, started by the governor, is the new retirement systems for all new employees. And 25% of our employees are now in the PEPRA system, which means that they get far less when they retire and they pay for a lot of the pension that they get. And that's changing over time and will get better. And I think that, we are in a good position. We have to watch it. We have to be aware. The next recession will be when the issues come up, because that's when the performance of the stock market hits us, and then we have to make adjustments.
Thank you. And Dennis, we'll start with you. Regardless of the Measure D results in the upcoming election, what do you think the best use is for the old golf course property for the citizens of Marin County?
Thank you. So, thank you for the question. I still think the original thought about the San Geronimo property was a good one. The thought was that it would be a public space. It would be a Stafford Lake-like park, a place where everyone could enjoy it. It would include restoring the 2 Coho streams that are on the property. It would mean looking at the clubroom parcel and seeing what other uses could be done there, including a community center, other public uses. It was thought of as a good location for a fire headquarters. Unfortunately, the process that the county was about to embark into was stopped by the lawsuit. And now Trust for Public Land is trying to carry that forward, and will continue to carry that forward regardless of the outcome of Measure D. But a lot of things are possible. We just never got to the point where we could do the planning process to see what the county and what the San Geronimo community really wanted. We never got to get into that process. So hopefully that can take place. The best scenario is that D is defeated. No on D is successful, because that means there's no constraints on the property. If D happens to pass, it means that every time someone wants to do a different use on that property, they would have to go back to the voters of Marin to get it approved. And that's a difficult task, and it also will cost the county of Marin up to $250,000 every time that happens. Thank you.
The golf course should be restored. As it stands, supervisors can rezone any parcel in the county, commercial, even this site where we sit right now. Measure D simply requires the county to ask the voters before they change the community plan. Measure D does not cost the taxpayers anything. If Measure D fails, the county's on the hook for $11 to $15 million to rewild the golf course, much of which goes into Bond's pocket.
Thank you. Alex, we'll start with you. Why do you support or oppose Measure C?
You know, those that stand to benefit treat government as a religion. Nothing is too good, nothing too costly for those who cozy up to the powers that be. Now that said, government is supposed to work for us, not the other way around. Measure C will cost me personally $500 a year, more than I'm paying in taxes right now. Measure C creates a whole new level of bureaucracy, a whole new multi-million-dollar slush fund to be wasted and abused. Marin's 13 fire departments should be consolidated, not supersized. We don't need any more $250,000 a year fire chiefs. We passed Measure A 10 years ago to help clear the brush. Instead, they bought shiny new cars and trucks, new uniforms, and put trail signs up. You can't trust the supervisors anywhere near a slush fund.
So Measure C was the outcome of a 2016 wildland study that the county did, followed by the North Bay lessons learned that Judy Arnold and I sat on that subcommittee, and also then a grand jury report saying we need to do more when it comes to prevention of fires. It's a $20 million ask essentially because we've identified $20 million of vegetation management, of roadway improvements, of egress improvements, of hardening of homes that we need to get done in order to prepare ourselves for the next potential fire. And so we have no means or ways to do that without going back to the voters. So this is us asking the voters, if you want us to do this work that we've identified, and this is all new work, it's all new money, it's nothing to do with the current budgets. In fact, the new money cannot supplement the old budgets for anything. It's a separate pot of money that has to go for the things that we've identified. It's a 10-year sunset. And that's a good deal for the customer, the citizens of Marin, to be able to have a review of it in 10 years. And, you know, it's something that I'm very supportive of because I think the residents of Marin have asked us to do this. And so this is the mechanism to do what you've asked us to do. Thank you.
Thank you. So are there any other questions from the audience? I've got one final question here. So we've got them all in? Okay. So this is going to be our final question, starting with Dennis. One of the many failures of public systems during the Tubbs fire, the Camp Fire, etc., was the lack of a public alarm or warning system. Neighbors saved neighbors as entire communities were left to fend for themselves. Do you support a county-wide alert system for these types of disasters?
So yes, I do, and we do have a countywide alert system with alertmarin.org. But we also have several other systems that are used with that. The reverse 911, radio, television, any way that they can get the message out, including Facebook, you name it, all the website way to transmit messages. But alertmarin.org is really the main message that we want you to get and we want you to sign up for, because that's the one that's going to give you direct information about what your risk is, what you need to do, and then instruct you. So you need to sign up for that and make sure you're on that, the sign up for that alertmarin.org. You know, the alarm, the sirens that Marin is, Mill Valley has put in, I know you're looking at them here in Homestead, and I think it may be a good solution for you because I know you hear what's going on in Mill Valley, but you may not be able to tell what they're telling you to do. And so I think that in Homestead it might be good to talk Southern Marin Fire into doing sirens or the new system. I can't remember the name of it anyway, that gives you direct instructions. But for the most part, the County Marin has not been in a place where they want to do that because they do feel that there's a lot of confusion related to that type of instructions. And so we're trying to use the systems that we have in place, not to say that there may be some communities that don't get additional siren systems or other systems like that. But right now we're depending on alertmarin.org.
Yeah, I support the community alert system we have. A year ago, we had a fire up at Mount Barnaby, and there was a wall of flame. It looked like you could almost reach out and touch it. However, the wind was blowing to the south. At that time, it was about nighttime, and the fire department came by and they said, well, maybe you should evacuate. It was really vague, you know, and I felt, I've seen fires like that before on Barnaby, and I didn't feel that we needed to. But they kept coming by, and we pondered it, so we did, and what a mess. The road was stopped up down by Sir Francis Drake. The community center was overflowing with people. We went to some friend's house for that night, and I think it could be handled a lot better. But still, the community alert system is a start.
And we have a final question. How can you, we'll start with Alex. How can you help us as citizens create more sustainable community services?
I'm afraid I don't know.
So Homestead is very, very fortunate because it has a special district, the sewer district here. It has a homestead association. And those are two of the great mechanisms to actually do things in your community, be able to generate funding to do things. I know you've worked on this building as a CSA, and the citizens of Homestead supported the CSA through a tax. You know, and I know that the sewer district has done a lot of work and have done a lot of improvements and will continue to do that. But the point being is you have a local government in place here that can do a lot of the things that you want to do now and may want to do in the future. So you're really, really fortunate to have these groups in place and mechanisms to collect funding, to get donations, to put things on your property tax, to do the things you want to in your district. It's a wonderful system because it works really well for local communities. I have areas in the western part of the district that would love to have the capabilities that you have to generate funding and do things related to pools and things like that and parks for their communities. So I think you're in a good spot and a good place, and we'd like to support you in anything you want to take on, including your new pool renovation, hopefully this next year. Thank you.
And we have a final question. And this will be a good wrap up. What do you see, and we'll start with Dennis, what do you see as priority issues or projects outside of West Marin, specifically here in Homestead Valley?
Sure, I think the immediate needs here are to support the PRDs, the private road divisions, to make sure that they can do what they need to do in their roads, to support additional road work and repaving work. We did a lot of that this last year here, and hopefully you've noticed most of that. To address issues around parking, speeding. We've done a couple red curves since I've been on the Board of Supervisors. Hopefully you've seen the benefit of that, where emergency services have better access and cars parked aren't blocking visions and things. So, you know, we just like to continue to work with you on those things. I think that, you know, you're, like I say, you're in a really good position to do a lot of those things, and you know, I think that that's sort of the approach we like to take with you is to be a partner and to address the things that you need to address. On the bigger issues, you certainly have housing, affordable housing. I don't know if you have opportunities around accessory dwelling units here to develop more permanent housing. And new laws on the accessory dwelling unit restrict it being used for short-term rentals. So that's a good thing. We don't need to create more short-term rentals, but we need to create more housing. I don't think you have many opportunities to do much dense housing in Homestead. Mill Valley certainly might, and in the entry to Homestead, you certainly may see some dense housing where that large concrete wall is down there. But anyway, those are the bigger picture things, and you know, so you know. But again, we like to address things on a local level and work locally. Yeah.
I have nothing to add to that.
Okay. So,
That concludes the question portion of the forum. Before the candidates make their closing statements, here is some useful information about the election. March 3rd is Election Day. Vote by mail ballots went out a few weeks ago, so you should have received them by now. Returned ballots must be postmarked no later than March 3rd and received at the election office no later than March 6th. Please note that Marin County pays the postage for all returned ballots. If you want a vote by mail ballot, you must request one by tomorrow, February 25th. This election is a presidential primary, which means you can only vote for the party preference you disclosed when you registered. If you did not indicate a party preference, you will not be able to vote for a presidential candidate on March 3rd. The deadline to re-register for party preference was February 18th, so that has passed. Early voting is now open at the election office at the Civic Center. You can vote there in person, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at room 121. And now the candidates will make closing statements of 2 minutes of each, and we'll go in reverse order. Alex, you started with opening statements, so Dennis, you will start with the closing statements.
Thank you. My opponents will make you think this is a one-issue race.
Talking to the left.
I'm sorry. My opponents would let you think this is a one-issue race and about one thing in particular, but I want you to look at my record and accomplishments to judge me. I'm very proud of what we've achieved in 3 short years. My work around rental ordinances, immigration protections, environmental and equity work, creating Measure W, which is creating houses in West Marin, giving fire districts the needs and means for responding to emergencies, and my work advocating for senior citizens, early childhood, and protecting agriculture in West Marin. I think if you look at what I've done, you'll re-elect me. I've been endorsed by the Sierra Club, the Democratic Party of Marin, North Bay Labor Council, professional firefighters, and a numerous amount of elected officials, including Congressman Huffman and Mark Levine. I'm very proud of what I accomplished, from working on repaving our roads to reducing our pension liability to addressing climate change and sea level rise. We work on all these things, and sometimes not daily, but almost daily. And sometimes we make a difference. We like to think we do. And we like to think we make a difference in all our communities, all 15 of them, not just one. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your vote. March 3rd, check out my website, dennisrodoni.com, and you'll find out more information. Thank you so much.
Supervisors come and go, but if we don't improve Measure D, any 3 supervisors can rezone the golf course to commercial and allow anything to be built: a hotel, a strip mall, a resort, a casino. Anything is possible when you mix big money in politics. As far as the golf course goes, I would like the FBI to investigate Supervisor Rodoni's backroom deal to dispel any rumors of kickbacks or racketeering. You just don't try to overpay $3 million for something and then try to slink away from the mess you created to benefit your buddies at Spawn. This is a terrible example for the rest of the county, who, after seeing you playing fast and loose with millions of dollars of taxpayer money, wonder why they shouldn't pluck the golden goose themselves. The public be damned. As far as the FBI goes, I had some recent business with the Lee family, the sellers of the golf course, helping a former employee win $9,000 for wage theft. They brought in dozens of banker boxes full of financial records, hoping to swamp us in discovery, but we knew exactly what we wanted, what we were looking for. It shouldn't be too difficult for forensic accountants to audit those records and follow the money to determine if everything is on the up and up. Again, I encourage you to vote yes on Measure D to help me clean up Civic Center as your new supervisor.
Thank you. And that concludes our forum. Thank you to Community Media Center of Marin for recording this event. It will be rebroadcast on Channel 30 and posted on YouTube. The YouTube link will be available at the League of Women Voters website. Thank you to the Homestead Valley Community Association for hosting this event, and thanks to the candidates for participating, to Elaine Biagini for being our timekeeper, Annie and Lisa for helping go through the questions, and to you for joining us tonight, and most importantly, for voting. Thank you.